think, a sign of the willingness, the work ethic, and the adventure and the opportunity, the timing coming together. So many people have poured into my life that, if anything, I'm actually reflecting from so many sources. And again, I am blessed. I've been blessed.
Look at this picture.
Oh, yes.
You were in space camp.
I was.
Yeah. How old were you? Do you remember?
Probably middle school.
And look at you now.
She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from North Carolina State University, a Bachelor's in Physics, and a Master's in Electrical Engineering. She's also done some interesting expeditionary work, so please welcome Christina.
Christina Cook, one of our mission specialists, great person, just a great personality, easygoing, very detailed, and task-oriented.
She is the person that makes sure that everyone walks away from some training with the right understanding. She speaks up and asks the question, and then usually the whole room is like, yeah, I had that question too.
Christina, she brings a science mind to these activities. I'm so excited that she has the chance to go to the moon and help lead the science as a whole.
First, she's just a great person. And then second, she is really outgoing, outdoorsy human being. So she is always off doing something that I wish I was off doing.
Her background as an explorer and someone that just, lives to explore and loves life and adventure, space, she's a natural.
Well, I was born in Michigan, family of farmers, and I ended up growing up in North Carolina. My particular family moved there, and both places were just incredibly important in terms of forming my values and who I am. I would describe that little girl as someone that loved to be a part of everything. My dad and I were always working in the shed. We called it shed heaven. He was always teaching me how to fix things, how to make things. For me, the moments of exploration as a child were ubiquitous. I was always exploring, whether it was on the farm, going around on the trails, under the trees, climbing the trees, or in my own backyard. The idea of celestial bodies, the moon, the stars, what all that meant, seeing the Milky Way, these were things that really drew me in. I myself was inspired by the Earthrise photo taken on Apollo 8. I had it on my bedroom wall as a kid. And the idea that we can take a picture of all of humanity at once, that will be a big moment.
Christina Cook, your record holder. She is out, thumbs up, and a huge smile.
She returns to Earth as a record holder, the single longest stay in space by a woman.
What advice would you give to a girl my age who wanted to become an astronaut when they grow up?
I did have those conversations where small kids were surprised that I was an astronaut because, quote, I wasn't a guy, I wasn't a man. And for me, that sort of set the bit that it was important to demonstrate by representation that anything is possible for anyone who has a passion and who's willing to work hard to achieve that dream. To see that tide changing and to recognize that we can affect that change by the decisions we make to go by all and for all is really inspiring for me.
A Canadian is going to the moon. That makes me smile when I say that.
I know Canadians could not be more proud. Proud to have for the first time a Canadian astronaut who will travel to deep space as part of the Artemis II mission.
I'm Colonel Jeremy Hansen, an astronaut with the Canadian Space Agency.
Jeremy Hansen, a Canadian F-18 pilot. He hasn't had an opportunity to fly in space yet. I really look forward to him being able to see his home planet from space for the first time after his 15 years of training.
It's interesting because when I think of Jeremy, while he's a rookie, I don't think of him as a rookie. And that says a lot about Jeremy. He's very prepared. He's a quiet, confident leader.
He is maybe the thinker or the observer of the crew, thinking about the technical aspects of whatever we're learning. So he'll have some really insightful comment or just some really great piece of humor to add at the end.
He's one of the funniest human beings that you will ever met. He is dry humor, and his timing is absolutely impeccable.
You know how many times I show up to an interview and then I watch them make the tripod taller? Just about everyone.
But the other neat thing about Jeremy that a lot of people don't get to see is he is incredibly incredibly creative.
His creativity in making this spaceship like a playground and actually knowing it for its fundamental capabilities could potentially save our lives on this mission.
I've definitely spent some time contemplating my first launch to space, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is what I'm going to feel like the day before. I imagine I'm going to be very pensive the day before. I'll be leaving the planet. I'll be leaving my wife and 3 children behind on the planet. I know what's going to happen the next day is risky, but I also know from my operational experiences and flying and challenges I've faced that when the day comes and it's go time, I'll be fired up. And I'll be just firing on all cylinders, riding that rocket to space. I grew up on a farm outside of London, Ontario, and just had a great childhood. I really credit my experiences on the farm with giving me some of the tools I needed to succeed in life. I went on to join the Royal Canadian Air Force. I had this passion for wanting to fly fighter jets, and ultimately that prepared me to join the Canadian Space Agency and take on this challenge of being an astronaut. It is kind of full circle for me flying out to the moon on this mission, because when I was a young Canadian, I did see an image in Encyclopedia A under Neil Armstrong of humans standing on the moon. I looked at that image so many times through my childhood. It was on the bookshelf at home, and I started just thinking about being a space explorer. I turned my treehouse into a spaceship. I created all these intricate dials made out of cardboard and popsicle sticks. I found some switches, circuit breakers in the barn that I mounted to have switches in my spacecraft. I had a control column I made out of wood and a hinge, and I was exploring space in my imagination. As a child growing up, I watched Marc Garneau fly in space, a first Canadian in space, and seeing that's what made me understand that it was possible for me to actually achieve that dream. I'm driven by the spirit of exploration. I don't even know that I can tell you why, but there's just something about that going to a new place and pushing the limits that really captures my passion. Super proud that Canada is joining the US-led mission back to the moon, the Artemis mission. Just gratitude for what they brought to the challenge.
The moon is like a Rosetta Stone for understanding the entire solar system and where we came from as a result.
I used to stare up at the moon. I was just fascinated by that image, that consistent image, and try to imagine what it might be like up there. Just thinking kind of on a mental journey, like I'm just taking this spiritual flight through the cosmos. But there was just this interesting and significant connection with the moon.
Everybody around the world has looked up at that exact same moon. The same side of the moon is always facing Earth, and we are always looking at that same picture. Some people are dreaming of it. For some it's a religious symbol, a spiritual symbol. For some it's a calendar, but we are always all looking at that same moon. It's one thing that every human has in common.
That thing that looks so far away is going to be right up close for us.
There's this human aspect of flying out and seeing the moon up close. That's going to be truly extraordinary. But then think about seeing the Earth from the perspective of the moon. To have the moon in the foreground and the Earth rising around the side of the moon is just an extraordinary thing to imagine. This is the stuff we dreamed of when we were kids, and now it's becoming reality. It's not becoming reality, it is reality.
My name is Lakeisha Hawkins. I currently serve as Acting Deputy Associate Administrator here at NASA. We lead the agency's efforts for human exploration to the moon and to destinations further beyond the moon. I'm one of those kids who went to elementary school, and we had enrichment programs where we did some rocketry and some landing experiments. I remember them rolling the TV cart into the classroom, allowing all of us to watch shuttle launches and landings. We were also sitting in front of the TV during the Challenger incident. That was impactful to me. I was one who wanted to explore, but I also knew that there was risk, and I wanted to be able to help others do so safely. And so that's always been in the back of my mind.
Touchdown
test flight means extra risk, even more when you're flying to the moon. How much more dangerous do you personally feel going into this mission compared with your previous space flights or other high-risk endeavors? And how are you and your families dealing with it?
I have a family. I'm a husband and a father. And so my family, we're preparing the same way. We talk about everything. We talk about how we're feeling and work with them to prepare as much as I train.
It's very exciting to fly crew, but it's also daunting, right? Because these are people who have families, moms, dads, kids, dreams, aspirations, and they're putting their lives in our hands.
I look at this one as failure is not an option. That's kind of cliche, but I was part of the Columbia accident investigation, and I've always remembered that. I think one of the biggest things that my leadership team and me have to overcome is the arrogance and the complacency that comes with the success that we have had, and to make sure that we leave no stone unturned.
We all understand there's heightened risk that's the biggest thing. To put it simply, there's increased risk with a test mission because you have never done that before.
I already knew going to the moon was hard. Administrator, you talked about it. Kennedy talked about it. That's why we're doing it. I already knew it was hard, but boy, it's harder than I thought.
Spaceflight's not safe. Spaceflight's not safe. It's risky. You anticipate issues in cases of test flights that you work through. You've done everything you can, but again, it's a test flight. You're doing it for a reason.
And so the challenge of that, and what sparks me about that, is this gives us a chance to really show what we've got and really show our ability to challenge ourselves.
It has been a long, long time since we have sent humans all the way out to the moon. This is new